Good afternoon. Hey, Marla. Hi, Jody, mom to 3 kiddos. Welcome. Hello, Joyfully Me. How are you guys doing today? Hello. Heck no. Bye-bye. Yeah, welcome to the block party, scumbag. No, no, no. How about some more normal people? You have a little dance break while we get started. Hi, Penny. Welcome. You guys know the Cupid Shuffle? How's your school day going? Are you done? It's 3:30 here, so we're done for the day. Thanks for sharing, Penny. We're going to talk about dyslexia today. Nephew with dyslexia and daughter with tendencies. Interested in your topic. Not started. We do it at night. Oh, cool. I want to hear more about that. My teenagers would love it if we did school at night. Yeah, hey, so many people have kids with dyslexia or learning disabilities, and actually this probably would help more than just people with dyslexia. So go ahead and share if you've got followers or friends that you think would be helped by this topic. Many kids for us. Snow Hill Mom, welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. We do a little dance party while we wait to get started and let some people get here. So my kids are 8 and 4. My 8-year-old is dyslexic and my husband is 2. Awesome. I love dyslexic people. All right. Kay, welcome. Glad to have you. I feel like maybe some of you are with me for the first time. You do school at night because it's the time you can get their attention. Great. Well, whatever works. That's one of the great things about your first timer. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's one of the great things about homeschooling is we have that flexibility. 6 kids, 2 with dyslexia. Me too. Me too. 6 kids, 2 with dyslexia. Yeah. All right. Well, I am Erica Johns from enrichmentstudies.com, and I'm really glad that you are here today. This is a topic that one of my readers, Shell, asked me to talk about, and so it's been on my list, and so my husband and I have 6 kids, ages 12 to 23, and we've homeschooled for most of the last 18 years, and 2 of my awesome kids have dyslexia. And so we've learned a few things over the years about it. I'm certainly not an expert, but I know what has worked for us. So I thought I would just share, and maybe, hopefully, many of you that have dyslexic people in your lives will also have ideas of things that have worked for you, and maybe you can share. And I'll actually have a time at the end when I'll ask you to pop up with additional things. So once I get on a roll, sometimes my attention gets really split between comments and talking. So we'll have a time at the end, and actually let me make myself a note here. So we will have yeah. I'll tell you guys this, for those of you who Periscope or are thinking about it, I'll tell you a little tip. I scope at my computer, so where my phone is right above my computer screen, and for my scopes I actually make out notes on a document, and then I make the font really big and I put it right in front of my face here so I can follow along with my notes, and it helps me kind of stay clear. So maybe that idea would help you too. So first, about enrichment studies, I help homeschool families incorporate more fine arts into their lives without running on a lot of mom power. And what do I mean by that? Without a lot of planning, without a lot of time, without a lot of effort, without a lot of struggle. I like stuff that's really simple and that gets things done really well without it being like a Herculean task, because when you already have kids and you're already homeschooling, that's already a lot. And not everything needs to be a Herculean task, and these things certainly just need to be more of an enjoyable task, and so they are at Enrichment Studies. And in case you didn't get to see, I'll just pop that up. You can screenshot if you want to check later. You can go to Enrichment Studies, and if you sign up for our subscriber perks membership, which is free, we have free gifts for you there, so you can go help yourself and start to see what that's about. And actually, a big part of what I've got at Enrichment Studies is because of the needs that I saw for my kids who struggled with reading and writing. And I've just found so many ways that they can continue to learn and grow without having to focus on those things that are hard for them. So, first of all, let's see, several of you have already shared. Anybody who hasn't already shared, do you have kids that are dyslexic, dysgraphic, whatever? If you're dealing with anything like that, I'd love for you to pop up and just kind of share so I know what we're working with right here. I thought I would just first give you sort of a background of some of the things that I noticed early on and through the years with my children that are dyslexic. First of all, and of course, and this is not universal by any means. This is just for my kids. One thing that I've learned about dyslexic is it's not the same thing for everybody. It can manifest in a bunch of different ways. And so, and also I find that dyslexia often is going along with other areas of weakness and strengths. 9-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter. Okay. So those are your dyslexic kids. All right. My dyslexic kids at this point. Hi, Raquel. Welcome. Florida. That sounds warm. That sounds very nice. My dyslexic kids at this point are 14 and 17. And they are delightful young men who happen to not have reading and writing be their easiest thing. But that's not going to hold them back in the long run. Your 8-year-old daughter, and she has ADHD. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, for us, one of the things that I noticed with both of my dyslexic boys is they were both very late emerging speakers. I can remember my son that's 17 now, when he was even like 3, he would talk to us like it was just, and we would just be like, okay, and it was funny because my first 2 children were early talkers and very articulate, and then my 3rd child comes along and we can't understand him for so many years. It was so frustrating for him, poor little guy. The more excited he got, the more difficult it was for him to express himself. The other thing that I can remember is he always had a hard time confusing concepts like times, more or less, things like that. So like, for instance, I can remember he'd be in the bathtub and he'd say, more hotter, more hotter. And I'd think he wants the water to be hotter. It's too cold. Well, no, what he means is it's too hot. I need it colder. And we'd see things like that all the time, where it would be like, even when you'd explain it to him, he couldn't remember and he would struggle to get those concepts straight. And it's fun every now and then that he'll even have something that pops up and be like, oh, that thing happened again. And it's just like a funny little quirk where it's like the wires get crossed and you're thinking of it in a way that's opposite. When he got to be school age and we were doing reading lessons, we used 100 Easy Lessons. And, he couldn't remember anything. Like from yesterday, every day was Groundhog Day. And even he couldn't remember stuff from earlier in the lesson, even 2 lines ago in the lesson. We could have just learned the, and he'd see it again, and it was a whole new world of confusion. What could this word possibly be? And he just, and it was so strange because he would start out and he would be fine. And then next thing you knew, it was like everything that was just there was gone. Absolutely perplexing, and obviously you can't really go forward because there's nothing to build on, And so that was obviously a huge problem and something I wasn't really sure what to do about it. He struggled. He was in school, in public school for a couple years at the beginning, and he rapidly started to fall behind because of the reading. And of course, in public school, like first grade is a huge push to get all the kids to read. And he had, I think, a lovely and wonderful teacher, but a teacher who didn't know that he had dyslexia, or maybe didn't know the signs of it or whatever. But her recommendation was always for him to have more homework, to practice reading more, to do more phonics. And more reading and more phonics is not going to help a dyslexic kid, at least not mine. That's just not going to make the connection for them. And by the time he was in second grade, he had a teacher who did say to me, I won't be surprised if later on down the line you find out that he has dyslexia. You know, he's really smart in a lot of ways, but for some reason this reading thing just doesn't click. And that was the last year that he went to school. He came home to be homeschooled after that point. I did not want him to be in a situation where he was feeling like the dumb one, because he's not the dumb one. And I just could see that the school wasn't going to be able to give him what he needed. And I could see how we could easily help him progress without all the frustration and downheartedness that he was experiencing in school. And so those are just some of the things. One of the first light bulb moments for me was when I read the book called The Gift of Dyslexia. And that helped me understand about this thing where they can't hold stuff in their memory. And what it explained is that a lot of times with dyslexic kids, the severity of the dyslexia that they're experiencing has to do with the stress that they're feeling in the situation. So, for instance, they can start out relaxed reading a book, and they go along and they're reading a sentence and it's going fine, and you're like, oh yeah, he's got it. And then maybe they get to a word that's kind of hard for them, and they stumble a little bit, and then they press in to figure out what the word is, and they get through that word, but there's been like a little bit of stress in the brain because, oh, we didn't know this word, and now we needed to like double down on our intensity to know this word. So then they go forward from there after they fix the word that they stumbled on, but now you notice they're going a little slower and they're having a little bit of a harder time, and they get to the next word that they don't know, and now they have to even apply a greater intensity with their brain to figure that one out, because it's even that much harder. It's like your brain is like kind of getting gummed up with each of these difficulties. And so as it goes, with each increasing tension, they're less and less able to process what those words are, what those letters are. And then it's like they just can't even see it. They can't take it in. And no amount of, you know this word, you just saw it up here and now it's down here. That's not going to help them. That's only going to stress them out more. And so when I saw that, I was like, aha, that is a dyslexia thing. That makes sense to me, because, a lot of people think of the dyslexia as like, they, confuse their B's and their D's and their P's and their Q's. Well, that's true. That's one thing, but there's a whole bunch of other things, and I'm just touching on this one right now. But that was very helpful to me to understand what was happening in the brain that was making it so that he couldn't function. Understanding the stress factor has been really helpful. If there's ever a time when you're doing something in your home and let's say you want him to read and you get frustrated and you say, come on, you know that. Or if somebody's picking on them, or there's just some sort of stress going on, that can be enough to make it so your kid's brain is just like, nope, sorry, can't play today. So it's really important for them when they are reading to experience as little stress as possible. It was interesting. I'll go on with the story later, but just the other day, my 17-year-old auditioned for a play, and over the years, he has overcome a lot of his dyslexia issues, but it was interesting to hear him say that while he was in the situation in front of a whole big crowd of people for this audition, he said all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, can I read it? Can I read it? Can I read it? Can I read it? And then I can't read it, you know, and he struggled to read a cold read, you know, right on the spot in his audition. And, you know, that's a frustrating difficulty of dyslexia. And sometimes even when you're doing a lot better, it still can come up for you. So there's a little bit of that. Have any of you experienced this thing where you see that they can't remember anything from one day to the next, from 1 minute to the next? Is that a common thing that some of you are experiencing? I'm just curious if this is hitting home for any of you. Let's see. We went along, I figured out all sorts of ways that we could just keep learning without letting reading and writing slow us down. Reading obviously is a difficulty for dyslexic kids, but then writing goes with it because a lot of times they have difficulty with spelling and there's more than one thing that's in the mix. When my older dyslexic son was about 12, we found out about a program. And you know what? I meant to write this down for you because I want to share this with you. Let me get my marker. It's called equippingminds.com. Sorry about that. equippingminds.com. These folks, this is a husband and wife team that run this place. They are parents to a son that was severely dyslexic, dysgraphic, I don't know, all sorts of things. And they found out about some therapies when he was younger that helped him immensely. And that put them on a trajectory where they started to, they put him into some very intensive therapy. They went and watched and learned about what was going on that was helping their son. They went on from there to learn more and more and more, and this is now, their son is a grown man who has, you knew someone whose daughter knew all the math facts, or most of them, and then suddenly forgot them all. Yeah. Well, in the case of Equipping Minds, with Kyle and Carol Brown, they have become experts at a wide range of approaches for all sorts of things having to do with learning issues, memory issues, etc. And they are actually not very far away from us. And we were able to go and get our son evaluated and enroll him in their program. And the reason why I'm telling you guys is because they actually do programs by Skype. And they also have a workbook and a DVD where you can learn how to do some of the stuff at home as well. So even if you're not in the local area, which of course you probably aren't, maybe they can help you, or they may know somebody in your area that can help you. I know a lot of people have a particular, you know, they do Orton Gillingham or various different dyslexia specialties. Equipping Minds is so powerful because they're looking at a much, much broader range of stuff than just one modality. So I've actually pulled up my our evaluation from our son's thing back in 2012, just to give you an idea of some of the things that they're evaluating. And I cannot explain to you as an expert all of the things about this, but they're looking at primitive reflexes, which are things that are starting from pre-birth and on through babyhood. All of these make a difference in the brain and what the brain can process, and you can do some simple exercises to fix and create the neural connections that there needs to be for certain things to go right in the brain. So they test for primitive reflexes and find if there's anything missing there. They're looking at processing speed, working memory, auditory memory, visual memory, long-term memory, visual processing, auditory processing, logic and reasoning, word attack, and they are using things like Oh, they do sound therapy, they do eye therapy, and they're doing this whole big spectrum of an evaluation. And so yes, you know, for my son, they could see that he was reading on, I think it was maybe like a second grade level or something, and he was 12. But they could also see he was incredibly high at logic and reasoning. He was very high at his working memory. He was struggling at his processing speed, and they can like break it right down to what kinds of tasks do we need to do to help his brain start to strengthen in these different areas. And it was really amazing. We enrolled him in this program. We call it brain training, and later we actually put 2 more of our children in it. And for most people, these things take about 6 to 8 weeks to go through the program. We actually went for 6 months because they just needed it, and because of their age and how much of a gap there was between what he could do and how old he was and what we were trying to bring him up to. It's called equippingminds.com. Snap a screenshot of that if you want to, and you can check them out later. Thank you. So anyways, we did that for about 6 months. So Jacob went from struggling to read on a second grade level, and within 6 months, he was in Classical Conversations Challenge A program, and he was reading and writing papers 6 months later. Now, was he reading fast? No. Was he writing the greatest papers on earth? No. But he was doing those things, which was huge, huge for us. And really, for Jacob, since that time, I haven't had to really pick up the slack for him too much. We had very good success for Jacob with this. And, you know, he has gone on to voluntarily work on writing novels just for fun. And he does theater, and, you know, he's writing and reading will probably never be his best thing or his favorite thing, but he's doing it. He's competent at it. Our younger dyslexic son did not have as strong of gains, and we may even put him back in the program. We're talking about doing that for maybe this summer. I know a lot of people have had incredible success with the help that they've gotten from Equipping Minds. So that might be something that some of you would look into as a Skype opportunity, or their workbook or whatever. And I don't get anything for telling you about that. It's just, this is the best thing that I know of that's really looking at a broad spectrum of stuff. And they did such a great thing for us, and I'm very glad to tell other people about it. So that's just kind of what we've done as far as mediation. I'm going to tell you some ideas of things that we've done kind of like subject by subject that we've been able to use that have helped us to keep learning and growing. I'm just going to do like a quick thing for people who are just showing up. I'm Erica Johns from enrichmentstudies.com, and today I'm just telling about dyslexia. I've homeschooled for most of the last 18 years. I have 6 kids, and 2 of my kids have dyslexia. And I've had some of my folks that have asked me for ideas about what to do. So this next part here, I want to just go through different things that I found have worked well. And hopefully you're going to have some additional ideas, and you can share those too at the end. One thing that's great for these kids is, and for all kids, is memorization. And when we found Classical Conversations, the foundation program, that's where we started. And that was the best thing about CC for our family, was how much memorization there was. And you don't have to be in Classical Conversations to get a lot of memorization, but you might want to get their CD. They've got a wonderful timeline song that we still refer back to, and we haven't been in CC for several years now, but a timeline song that gives you all major events through the course of history, skip counting, science memory, Latin, all sorts of stuff. It's any kind of memory that you can do is really good. And especially my kids, I think, had felt for a while like they didn't have anything measurable that they could point to and say, oh yeah, I know this. And it was such a boost for their confidence when we did the Classical Conversations Foundation program for them to know so many things. They felt so proud of themselves that they had learned such a large amount of stuff. And any homeschool can do it. I mean, if you can pop a CD in while you're in the kitchen or in the car, you can learn a tremendous amount of stuff. And you know, one of the things that I wish that I had understood earlier on was about neural pathways. You know, if you think of like, if you learn skip counting, if your kids know math facts, you think of like when they first learn that, you know, they learn 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and there's like a path being cut through the brain where they know that. And if you think if you had to, your CC family too, that's great. We did CC for 3 years. You know, if you think of if you're going through a forest with a machete and you've got to blaze a trail, you know, and you're cutting back those branches or whatever while you're learning your multiplication facts, and then the next time you go through, you know, hack away at any spare weeds, and you keep going through and you keep going through, and eventually you've worn a path. When you memorize, you're blazing a path, a neural pathway in your brain, and it's such a gift to your kids if they already have blazed a path where they've memorized math facts, because later on, when they're doing math, they don't have to struggle with the computation and the operation. If they already know computation by memory, then all they have to focus on is what are the steps that I need to do for this mathematical operation. So it's a huge thing. But also, you know, we're seeing this even like we're doing high school level biology, and you know, we learned a song in NCC. You know, you got kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, or you know, there are 5 kingdoms of living things, and we know what they are. You know, we sing our, you know, we still sometimes sing the song just as a reminder. You know, what are they? Animalia, Plantae, Protista, Monera. And it helps it stick in there for you. We have times when I'm reading Story of the World, and then we'll be like, oh, we know that. That's from, you know, and then they're like, the Middle Ages, circa 450 to circa 1500. You know, right away, we know when the Middle Ages was. You know, I wouldn't have known that. I didn't know that before CC. I couldn't have just told you like that when it were the Middle Ages. I can now, and so can my kids. You know, so memorization, it's awesome for everybody. And it doesn't have to be writing it down. Writing it down is not going to help that much for your kids with dyslexia, but singing it sure will. So that's one thing. Anything that you can find that's catchy, that'll help them memorize. There's songs for continents, for states and capitals, countries and capitals, all sorts of stuff. You can just start searching for anything that you want to know and see what it is that you can find. There's, oh, what are those science things with the, oh, UCC people will know. It's got the, they have like corny science songs that go with, okay, the CD, it's Classical Conversations Foundations Memory CD. They're going to have 3 different ones for cycle 1, 2, and 3. Get them all or just start with 1. And if you can get a used one, that's fine too. But make sure you get that that timeline song. That's it. That's just been in the last few years that came out. That's really good to have. What is that called? I can't think of it. Maybe someone will remember. The science. Sorry, I should have written that down. Okay. For history, Bible, literature, we love Sunlight. That has been our most favorite thing that we have used for, you know, over the last 18 years. And that's mainly what we're using now. For people who are looking for a secular or non-religious version, Bookshark is the secular branch of Sunlight. But it's literature based and it's really wonderful. I read all the books, even the ones that are supposed to be ones that the kids read themselves. I read the whole thing. Sometimes we take turns reading, like everybody's got their own Bibles. So like when we're doing Bible reading, you know, a lot of times I'll just ask people to read, you know, a section at a time. And even my dyslexic kids can get a little read aloud practice, you know, even if they're not great at it. It's not a whole lot. But I read all the books to them. And I know some people don't love to read. We use Veritas, and they have a history song. It's made a big difference in memory. Yeah, that's great. So anyways, Sunlight has been great for us. And I'm sure I know there's many beloved literature-based programs for history or whatever. You know, pick one that you love. That just happens to be the one we loved, and I just stick with what I love. I don't look at new stuff too much, but I just read to them, and I do voices, and I try to be good at it, and they seem to enjoy it a lot. For language arts and writing, I really, really love the Brave Writer philosophy. And you know, I didn't write that down for you either. How many of you already know about awesome Brave Writer? I bet we have at least a couple of you. BraveWriter.com. The Brave Writer philosophy is unique in the homeschool space and wonderful. Go to Brave Writer, sign up for her newsletter, get her daily writing tips, follow her on Facebook, follow her on Periscope. Julie will infuse your life with a wealth of encouragement and knowledge and stuff that will really help you, especially, well, not especially, she's got the best. She says everything that I'd want to say as a parent if I had the time to say it. She's a couple years ahead of me because all of her kids are grown up. I only have 2 grown-up kids and 4 that are still growing up. But she has a lot of great stuff for homeschool parents. Bye. Thanks for coming. Glad you came by. Yes, Julie's very lovable. Julie's very encouraging about you being the scribe for your child's writing. So instead of you expecting them to think of what they want to write, physically do the writing, think of how to spell it, think of the grammar and all that stuff, that is a recipe for too much stress in the dyslexic brain. Okay? You're not going to get the best work out of them, but if they can talk and tell you and you can write it down, that's okay. That counts. Okay, that counts as them expressing themselves through the written word. This helps so much with my son who struggles greatly to write. Good. I'm glad. Brave Writer has a wonderful book called Partnership Writing with all sorts of projects that you can do throughout a school year where you can work with them or they can work as a team, like all of your kids or a group of your kids together. So there is a lot there, and I think Julie's very good at opening our eyes to the way that professional writers do their work, how, nobody is churning out a book without a team behind them to make it their best thing possible. And so you don't have to just expect your kids to be able to write some awesome thing and do every single part of it all by themselves. Lots of good stuff there for families with dyslexic kids. Also, audiobooks are wonderful, and this has been a huge amount of enjoyment for my kids. All of them enjoy listening to audiobooks, but it's especially great for my dyslexic kids because they're not just going to be able to pick up, Artemis Fowl or whatever they want to read and read it. One thing that is really good though is if you can get, this is about to go back to the library, but if you can get the audiobook and the physical book, take them out of the library, they can read along while they're listening, okay? That's actually a great thing for any of your kids, any level reader. It's going to strengthen their reading skills. And so, when they have their book and they are reading along while they're learning to go at a faster speed, they're learning how to pronounce stuff, and, getting more familiar with the flow, tracking their eyes, okay? And all of that, that's actually part of things that dyslexic kids really need. One of my boys is dyslexic, my younger one. Something that was noticed when he started brain training was that when he'd be looking at words to read, he'd look at the words for a little bit and then his eyes would go up. And he'd read a little bit and then his eyes would go up. And Carol, the director there, she said to me, he's come to believe that words aren't his friend. And he is just recoiling from words. And we need to help him get to where words are his friend. And so reading along with an audiobook is a great way to do that. The library in our area has books, for all levels, including little kids levels, where they can read along to a story that's on CD or whatever. So that's a great way to get kids, pre-readers, struggling readers, whatever, get them up to speed. So videos are a great way. And this is one of the reasons why I include so many videos at all of our resources for enrichment studies. You can learn so much about art history, presidents, musicians, everything. Like, there's so much out there. I mean, here we are. When I started out homeschooling, there was no internet. Okay, you guys? Like, we're so lucky now that there is so much out there. And one of the things that I've done for you at Enrichment Studies is we already tracked down stuff that's high quality, that's safe for your kids. We've previewed it. We don't have the we set it so there's no like videos that are suggested that come up at the end, so they can just stay on the page and be safe and watch the videos there. But they can learn a ton that way. And you know what? You don't have to even read anything to them. You can set them up with like, one of the things that I'm noticing, the older boys, I get a lot of parents that tell me their older boys really love our scientists and our inventors collections. And, this is a great thing when you're working with one of the other kids. You can set up your, somebody who needs something productive to do, set them up on enrichment studies with one of your collections. Let them learn about Albert Einstein, and they can just watch the videos. That counts. Not all worthwhile learning comes through a book, nor does it have to come fed from your hand. You can set them up and let them go, and they can learn a ton. Obviously, you can get videos from your library. You can look on Netflix. We track down stuff that's on Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and all that stuff for you. But videos can be huge. You can also find, video-based courses for science concepts, video-based foreign language like Muzzy, videos to learn sign language, all sorts of stuff. More and more stuff is coming out on video. And I think as school systems are unable to really help kids with dyslexia, you see a lot of families that are homeschooling specifically because their kids have learning issues such as dyslexia or other things. And so more and more parents that are homeschooling are looking for ways that are not solely based on a reading a textbook sort of a thing. So we're just going to see more and more good video content coming out, but there's a ton of it already. And speaking of sign language, a lot of places count American Sign Language for the foreign language requirement for high schoolers. So there's a perfect spot to put your efforts for your kids that need to learn a foreign language or that want to. You don't have to have reading or writing that's going to be a huge barrier for that, like it might be for conjugating verbs in Spanish or French or whatever. So there's that. Listening to music is wonderful for their brain. And, obviously they can get all sorts of good benefit from classical music in the background. So that's something that you can do. We also have learned the value of brain games when we did our brain training with Equipping Minds. There were tons of different games done with cards and things that my boys did that was working different aspects of their memory and their cognition. And I'm actually going to do, I think next week at 3:30 on Wednesday, we'll demonstrate some of the games that we do. We try to take time during our school day, usually like a half an hour, to do some sort of brain training games just to like get all of our wheels turning. And many of them are things that you can do even with younger kids. So there's that. Let's see. Executive function skills is a big thing that a lot of kids need, and many times dyslexic kids as well. Executive function skills, if you're not familiar, it includes things like their working memory, I'm reading from the book here, planning and prioritizing, organization, time management, etc. I just recently got this book, Smart But Scattered Teens, and I think that they had just a Smart But Scattered book that came out first that was more general. I'm not that far into the book yet, so I can't tell you that much about it, but it came highly recommended. And this is an area that we are still working on here. So I recommend that. Copy work is something that I use a lot with my kids. Narration doesn't work very well for them, for the dyslexic kids, because they just really get hung up on not knowing how to spell things. But they can do copy work, and I try to have a nice variety of things that they can copy. And when we're doing the copy work, it's like, you know, their penmanship, their spelling, their grammar by example, and the copying function all rolled into one. This year we are using the quotes from U.S. presidents that I offer in enrichment studies, and we've really been enjoying that. The quotes are really good. We've had some good conversations about them. They're pretty inspiring. And you can actually get a free sample of quotes from U.S. presidents over at Enrichment Studies. Notebooking can be a very good skill for dyslexic kids. I often recommend notebooking pages. I will put a link so you can learn more about that in the blog post that I will have up at enrichmentstudies.com/blog after this. We're doing high school biology. We're using Apologia Biology this year. And just to give you an example, like for big kids, but obviously you could apply this for younger kids. What we do for biology, we gather around the table, I read and, you know, work through reading the lesson. Each module, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, each module has like a fill in the blank note-taking thing. And so they follow along, and when we have stuff to fill out, I actually just use like this pretty big whiteboard, and I write down, you know, whatever the word is that goes in that blank, and they copy it. My dyslexic kids don't do too well if I say basidiomycota, B-A-S-I-D-I-O-M-Y-C-O-T-A. They're going to be like, what? And so if I just write it down for them, they can copy from that. And we just go along very well with their biology that way. So we do a lot of stuff where I read, and you know, I just have found there aren't a lot of great shortcuts for me as the teacher for my kids. It's tempting sometimes. We are doing all middle school and high school level work here. And if we do all of our stuff that's on the schedule for the week, that's like 30 hours a week of school. And I am in there for all of that time, teaching, tutoring, mentoring, all the way. I would love it if there was some, you know, way that they could get a great education where I could just say, go to your school, and they would do it. For the factors that we have going on, that is not an option. And the times when aren't 3 audio versions of science curriculum. Tell me more what you mean. Anytime that I've tried to take a shortcut, it has ended up backfiring, and it's usually ended up that they didn't learn like I thought they were going to, and then I just had to back up and teach it all afterwards. So I've just told myself, you know, this is just what they need, and this is what we're going to do. And you know, that brings me actually to something that I wanted to say that I think I skipped, and that is that, you know, one of the most important things that I think you've got to realize if you have kids with any kind of learning disability, or really any kids at all, is your mindset is one of the most important factors in the whole thing. You've got to let go of the pressure of grade levels. You cannot be, you know, like, oh no, you know, he's only whatever, you know. You have to focus on starting where they're at and just keep going forward. And, you know, if you're trying to, you know, do spelling with them and they're on the spelling lesson that's from, you know, 5 grades ago, okay, you know, you still have to learn that stuff. You still just have to go step by step by step by step. And, you know, you getting freaked out about it and you freaking them out about it isn't going to help. So you need to try to calm down and just do the best you can to help yourself and help them. And if you need to reach out to some place like Equipping Minds or whatever, you just need to You need to find out what that is and do the best you can to get them the help they need. Another podcast I listened to, making people had a child who couldn't read. Yeah, it's not uncommon. And it's not that my boys can't read. It's just that it's really not their best thing. It's just really hard for them. Their brain just doesn't cooperate with that. Okay, next thing I wanted to tell you about that I think is great, especially for littler kids, is partnered reading. And that's where you would read a section and then they read a section. So I'll give you like an example. I just grabbed this Till Really Late used an audio curriculum. Oh, okay, good. Good. What was that curriculum? I'd love to know. I'm sure other people would too. So for instance, like here's an Amelia Bedelia book. So maybe your child would read this and then you'd read this. And you just go like page by page, and you read a section and they read a section, and it's just a cozy little thing where you share the reading, and it can really take the pressure off them. Also, where we talked about the thing where a lot of times that they get stressed and then their brain is like, and then they're struggling and they're slowing down the reading. This gives their brain a break, and you can just kind of help them keep going with the flow and the happiness of the book that they're reading. You can't remember, okay, well come back or tweet me if you think of it and we'll share it with people. I'm glad that you mentioned that though. So anyways, the partnered reading can really be good, and you can do it with bigger kids too. You can do it, you read a paragraph, I'll read a paragraph, whatever. I think the most important thing to remember when your kids are reading out loud when they struggle with dyslexia is to really keep it positive and try to keep the stress low. If they struggle, don't say like, okay, just sound it out, because a lot of times they just can't. Like, it's not a matter of just sound it out. I mean, and some of them can. I mean, there's all different levels of dyslexia or whatever, but a lot of times if they don't know the word, the best thing you can do is just quietly tell them the word, Tuesday. Okay. And then they know and they go on. During our brain training, one of the things that they did when the kids would read to them, if they read a word wrong, really quietly, they would just say, check it. And the kids would just look back. So they weren't saying no, or that, that was wrong, or fix that. They just said, check. And the child would look, and a lot of times they could self-correct and just go right on. But it seemed to be something about the quietness of the way that they said it and their choice of word for it that seemed like it kind of kept it low stress. And that's another thing, when your kids don't know how to read or spell something and they say to you, how do you spell blah, blah, you do not want to do that thing where you're like, well, I don't know, how do you spell it, just tell them how to spell it, okay? Because that's really going to help them more than anything. And if you want them to be able to get the help that they need from you, and you don't want to become a source of frustration, so that then, they don't feel like they can relax and learn safely with you, okay? Especially when you're homeschooling and you are, their whole teacher system that they have, you need to really do your best to make yourself be like a life-giving source of, freedom and safety and love and encouragement as they're reading, okay? So you want to do that. We do have a quiet reading time for 30 minutes a day. Everybody just has any book of their choice, and we usually all just kind of like snuggle down on the couches in the living room or whatever and read. And, so with that, there's no pressure for them to read fast or read well. I don't know if they're pronouncing it right or how far they got or whatever, but they get book time that's just enjoyable book time. And even my dyslexic kids love it. Everybody enjoys it. And, nobody is, getting any input that's making them feel, that they got it wrong or whatever. They all have a book that they like, that they read. And, that's been really good. So for your little kids that for any of your kids, if they need books to read that are on their grade level, the easy reader type books, all those leveled readers, can be really helpful. And I found that even for my dyslexic kids when they were kind of older than the easy reader age, because it seems like usually there's a lot of those that are like kindergarten, first, second, third, maybe fourth or whatever. A lot of those books can be kind of babyish, but I used my library website and I went and I looked through all their easy reader and whatever there's like step-by-step and different names for them. I looked through and I actually found a lot that would not make them feel babyish. I found ones about motorcycles, sharks, careers, scientists, history stuff, weather, different things like that. Okay, gotta go. Yep, catch it on catch. Thank you for coming. So I got a lot of those and would have those available from the library for my kids to read. So it was stuff that wasn't too challenging for them, but could get them enjoying what reading they were able to do or that we could partner up to do. So that's another thought for you as well. So what suggestions do you guys have and what questions do you have? Because now's the time for any of that. I feel like I probably forgot all sorts of stuff, and if you ask, that will help. So you guys have any questions or things that are working well for you that you'd like to share with other homeschool families? And they are silent. Crickets. I'm reading through to make sure I didn't miss anything that Shell asked me, because she was the original one. How do you do handwriting? Okay, well, we did, when they were littler, we had, I think we used a Reason for handwriting books, and they would just do the handwriting. Now that they all are onto cursive, we do the cursive copywork pages. So at enrichmentstudies.com, I've got quotes from U.S. presidents that we're using, and actually it's got print, cursive, and Danielian manuscript versions of different quotes from the first, first 12 presidents. And so we're using the cursive version of those, and so they do that for penmanship, handwriting practice, as well as their copy work and all the good stuff that comes from copying. So, but when they were little, we just did Reason for handwriting. Just used a book. Typing seems to be important for kids with writing challenges. Yes, and that's actually one thing that we are kind of lagging on, but I agree, typing is a good thing to pursue. And there's a lot of online typing, keyboarding, I guess they call it now. A lot of online solutions for that. So, and we've done some of them. I mean, they have done some, but we're not like super proficient. So we don't do a whole lot of our school on the computer, and so they don't have a lot of reason yet to do the typing. The oldest one that's home, he's 17, he's the best for the typing of the 4 that are still homeschooled. So let's see, any other subjects or tips or questions? All right, well, I'm not going to drag it out too long. We've already been on here for an hour. This might be my longest scope yet. Usually I try to keep it shorter than that, but okay, so next week I will be set up with my boys to show you guys some of our, you're welcome, show some of our card games that we've used. These are, not expensive. They're card games that you can get, at Walmart or on Amazon or whatever, and can kind of get the 2 sides of the brain working for your kids, and they're fun too. So that'll be what we'll do next week at 3:30. I had been doing a scope on Tuesdays at noon, a series called Home is Where the Art Is. I wrapped that up yesterday, and I think I'm done with that, and I haven't decided if I'm going to replace it with anything. So for right now, for next week, I'll just plan on the 3:30 thing. Tonight, I'm going to be on the Mommy Scopes, what do they call it? It's like a skip something. We're having some sort of thing that starts at 8:30. This should be fun. We go like for 5 to 7 minutes from one person to the next for like an hour. I'm talking on a particular topic, which right now, I can't even remember what that topic is, but I'll be on tonight, probably between 8:30 and 9 or something like that. So if you guys are looking for something fun to do, you should hop on Periscope tonight. I love Periscope. It's like having a friend with you in your phone anytime. You can just get on there and you can find somebody that's talking about something interesting, and it's pretty cool. So that is all for today. I hope you guys have a good evening, and maybe I will see you tonight, hopefully next week, and we'll do Dyslexia Part 2 with the brain games, okay? So thanks a lot.